Howdy folks, Pilgrim here. Folks, I don't normally do this, especially at this time of night, but I'm making this video because I want it to be ahead of the blood moon that's coming. Now, some of what you're about to hear, you've heard before from Watchman River and things like this. I have to use my fat head to try to block out these lights, and I apologize for it, but there's really nothing I can do. This is the only location I could find that was out of everybody else's way. See what I mean? So anyway, you have heard some of these things before, but not all of them, I guarantee. And those of you who've been through the Genesis timeline prophecies with me will recognize the prophetic significance of what I'm about to read you. But I want you to understand that you're going to hear this from nowhere else. And I want you to understand just how close we are to the Lord's return. No one has the right to name a day or an hour. But we are always watching. Mark 13:37, what I say to you, I say to all. Watch. The Lord's own words. Okay? We're told to watch for his coming. And we have parallels of Jesus coming with Moses and with so many other figures in the Bible. But just taking Moses, for example, the people were told to watch for his coming, to be found in that obedient state of mind, you know? So I'm going to try to read off some things to you here, okay? We know there is a lot of significance, a lot of numbers flying around this blood moon put in. The whole story of Esther is paralleled by what's happening with Iran. Okay? Hopefully Haman has just been hanged on his own gallows, but I have a sneaky feeling that that situation isn't over yet. In fact, in some ways it's escalating. Okay? So we're keeping our eyes on Jeremiah chapter 39. Here we go, right? When this blood moon passes, the Genesis timeline took you up to the year 2024, and I showed you the lunar calendar where things like this happened, and the solar calendar and how the lunar and solar acted as one, paralleling each other by God's design since the foundation of the world. Abraham was born in the year 1948. That is 1,948 years after Adam. Once you hit Abraham's birth by simply adding the numbers together as you count forward, Adam was born in year 0, let's just call it that. And when he was 130 years old, so we call that year 130, he had his son Seth. And when Seth was X amount of years old, he had his son Enosh. And so you add those years together. How old was he? You add that to the 130, you come up with the next figure. It's literally a straightforward walk. Once you hit Abraham's birth in 1948, the numbers start jumping all over the place and doing some very exciting things. And all of that's in the Genesis timeline prophecies on their playlist on this channel here on YouTube. But if you go through that private Bible study yourself with the numbers, you'll begin to see what I mean. I have a photograph of the Genesis timeline on this channel. Take a look at it. It's right there where I'm posting notices and things like that. It's one of the other tabs, videos, lives, shorts, and so on. It's among those, and you'll see it at the very bottom. It's the first post of all of them. So we know the last days generation began in 1948 with the re-establishment of Israel for the first time in human history since the destruction of the Second Temple. 2,000 years. We know the Lord is due any time. This makes it 6,000 years, and we are waiting for what the book of Hebrews calls the seventh day, the Sabbath day of God's kingdom, which is the seventh day. So we know we're on the brink of the seventh day, 7 days, as God established it. And this sixth, the last period, the last day's generation began in 1948. Just keep all this in mind. I'm explaining this for a reason. With this blood moon and the whole book of Esther, so to speak, playing out, the bride is readying herself. The Genesis timeline prophecy is finished in 2024, which was 70 years plus 7, with all the lunar and solar signs that I presented to you leading up to that year. And after that, I said, from this point on, it's all going to tumble down and so on. It's interesting that the Genesis timeline finishes in the year 2027, which is 3 years after 2024. What I didn't know was that the lunar and solar events that led up to 2024, like the United States receiving a 3-in-1 and a 1-in-3 part warning inside a 7-year period from 2017 to 2024, warning them using the new Madrid fault line, and there's too many prophecies over that to go into right here, warning them over the splitting of the land of Jerusalem, which is Joel chapter 3, the land of Israel and the city of Jerusalem, those nations that divide God's land. The Jews have known about the prophecies over the New Madrid fault line for centuries, that the land who divides the land of Israel and splits the city of Jerusalem will in itself be split. That's New Madrid, that's the United States. So all of these led me up to April the 8th, 2024. What I didn't know, which Watchman River brought out, was that there was 3 blood moons tying 2024, 2025, and 2026, which is virtually unheard of. 3 in a row, like this. We have these 3. This blood moon, during this Esther playout, which is about a bride, okay? And it is about the salvation of the Jewish people. These 3 blood moons that happen. It's the 3rd year in a row. This is the 3rd of 3. It happens in the 3rd month. It happens in the 3rd day. It takes place in the 3rd hour. And it is at its maximum totality at the 33rd minute past the 3rd hour, 3:33. And no one else has made this connection, but because I've been sharing the Genesis timeline for years, this is where my mind went immediately. The only place that sees that maximum totality at 3:33 in the morning is the west coast of the United States. The godless coast is what I'm calling it. Addressing the godless coast, addressing the godlessness that has crept. I don't know which words to use, but you know where I'm going. The godlessness of what has happened in the United States, the rising anti-Semitism, the decision to plow forward and split the city of Jerusalem and divide the land of Israel. It's no surprise that that coastline gets hit with this message. Okay? It lasts for 33 minutes. It is at a 33-degree angle on the horizon as it passes. Okay? And there won't be another blood moon again for exactly 33 months. This happens as the war between Iran, Israel, and the United States, 3 nations, takes place. It breaks out, that war, exactly 3 days before this event takes place. You see what I mean? If we're about to leave, if we're going to leave it sometime soon, it's interesting to me as we prepare ourselves to meet our God, to meet our Maker, as the Lord prepares to judge the world. It's interesting to me that this parallels the 3 6s. There's only been 3 6s in this new millennium. It cannot be mistaken for any other time period. 2006, 2016, and 2026. If we go back to the Genesis timeline, Noah died in the year 2006. Trump was elected in 2016. That's the same year the United Nations, in their occultic practices, declared 2016 to be the year of light. Because that was the year their champion was supposed to appear on the world scene in some way. Noah dies in the year 2006. Trump was elected in 2016, and here we are in 2026 with 3 nations battling, fulfilling so many biblical signs I don't even have time to put them here. And we have the third of 3 blood moons appearing. Addressed, by the way, because the moon always is about Israel and about the Jewish people, addressed to every nation of the world except Israel. Israel does not see this blood moon. This is a message to those, to the world. I say those enemies, but this is a message to the world about the Jewish people. Isn't it strange that there's a blood moon that Israel can't see, but everyone else can? And when it hits the west coast, it's at 3:33, and it lasts for 33 minutes, etc., etc. You understand? It reaches its peak strength when it hits the west coast at 3:33 a.m. That's a message being sent. The United States missed the 3 in 1 and the 1 in 3 message that it was sent in during the 7-year period from 2017 to 2024, where a giant X, and then it turned into an Aleph, thanks to, I think, October the 15th, in 2023, 3s again, it turned that X into a giant Hebrew letter Aleph, which is, in the realms of Gematria, it is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet and is viewed as kind of God's signature, if you like. How can this be coincidental? Let's go back to Exodus 19, verses 11 and 15 to 20. This is where the Lord tells his people to be ready for the 3rd day. This is after Jesus died and arose to heaven. The coming kingdom of God will be the 3rd day afterwards. It's the 7th day, but 4,000 years before Christ, 3,000 years, 2,000 years after Christ, and then the coming of God's kingdom. That's 7. So we are here, and we are waiting for the 3rd day. You understand? As there are, I believe, 3 male patriarchs and 4 female patriarchs in the Bible. You know, Abraham, Isaac, and so on, and Leah, and all of them. There's 7. And Israel is made up of 7 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, each letter of which stands for each of those patriarchs, the 3 males and the 4 females. It's not a coincidence, you know. In God's holy name, you also find a huge connection between Israel and God's name and so on. And I go into all this in the Genesis timeline videos. It gets very, very deep, very deep. So the Lord tells in Exodus 19, tells the people to be ready for his coming, to be on the watch, and to be ready for the 3rd day. And then he will come down. And what happened on the 3rd day? The trumpets blew and the Lord came down. There's a lot of stuff here. This comes from Jeffrey Phillips. The 3rd day of the biblical New Year is March the 22nd to the 21st, with the new moon on March the 20th. What's the missing day? That's March the 21st. I'll play with the numbers and say 2 plus 1 is 3, another 3, but it's exactly 3 times 7. March the 21st, right? 7/14. It's the third week. I just find that interesting. From rapturecountdown.com, we have the assertion that Syria is next. Why should Rapture Countdown be making this conclusion, jumping to this conclusion? I don't think they are. What's happening right now in Syria and Lebanon? People are filling the streets, jamming the roadways, trying to get out. They're trying to get as far away from Damascus as possible, as Hezbollah is now doing their thing and trying to join the fight, and they've stockpiled their weapons of chemical weapons and other terrible weapons in and under the city of Damascus. So rather than viewing these as separate prophecies, are they not all pretty much going to happen together? It's a possibility. The streets are jam-packed with people trying to flee and get as far away from Damascus right now as possible. It's crazy what's going on over there. Damascus, I'm reading this from Rapture Countdown, Damascus was the epicenter for the start of God's grace. Could it be that God will use this in Isaiah chapter 17 verse 3 to signal the end of the age of grace, the end of the church age, which means the rapture? We don't know the day or the hour, but you got to tie all of this together and explain it somehow. John chapter 2 verse 1, that's 3. 2 plus 1 is 3. That's just the way my mind works. And the third day there was a marriage. A Jewish one at that. All of this stuff, folks, I leave with you. I've got personal stock in looking at these numbers. It's amazing. There is a meme going around claiming that these 3 blood moons parallel 3 blood moons that happened around the time of Christ's birth. Somebody very sharp reminded me on YouTube, and I forget his name, and I'm sorry, but thank you. Not to be, swept away so easily. It might be true. But then they said, I can't find a reference for the third date. And he was right. I looked hard and I could not find where these dates come from. They claim it parallels 3 blood moons in 32 AD, 33 AD, 34 AD. We couldn't verify the 34 AD, but it really doesn't matter. It's on a personal level. Passover occurred in 32 AD with a blood moon. Passover occurred in 33 AD. That was on April the 14th. Then the second one, we're not going to talk about the third because we can't verify it, but the second one happened on April the 3rd. And that happens to be my mother's birthday. And if some of you remember my older videos, you'll remember I talked about the visions and dreams that I had as a child. And I was shown as a child things about the future that are only happening right now. But it was at a time when my mother was living in a faraway country. And that's Bible speak for her having died. But I didn't know that at the time. I couldn't have known that at the time because I was a child. I think that video is still up in my playlists among the visions and dreams, but I've spoken about it for many, many years, where my mother was in a faraway country. And meanwhile, there was great persecution and murder taking place in the place that I was looking at. And now Iran is, and I want to throw one more thing in there. Iran is talking about, they've flown the red flag of revenge to signal any individual who cares to react in a way that Iran no longer can, get others to do their dirty work for them. And there's enough of these people in the United States, sleeper cells, and in England and in France and other countries like that, that will probably take that order as literally as they can. But it's the last call of a dying regime, a defeated regime. The point is this, is that as soon as all of this happened, Russia and China have now decided to meet together and say, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about the United States? They're just going rogue and taking out whoever they wish, and they're doing all this, and these are my words, they're doing all this good stuff around the world. What are we supposed to do about it? And people are talking about the Damascus from Isaiah 17:3. And if that does kick off, and we don't know the day or the hour when the rapture happens, but if that does kick off the end of the church age, the end of grace, since as rapturecountdown.com states that the city of Damascus was the start of the age of grace. That being the case, you have to ask why Russia and China are talking now and what they're deciding to do about it, since the United States seems unstoppable. And that brings in the question of just how far does Revelation chapter 17 and chapter 18 reach into this? Is that the response? Again, go to my playlist, please, and look at the New Madrid fault line playlist, and you will see that God has been sending his prophets, a long line of them, a constant stream of them, to the United States to warn them about what is coming since 1954, another 70-year period that stretches from 1954 to 2024. There was one 70-year period for the Jews and one 70-year period for the Gentiles. That's too much to go into right now. It's all in the Genesis timeline playlist. Some big things happened in 1954, which are very significant and central to this country. It is the year that they dedicated themselves and said, one nation under God. Under God was never there in that pledge. But it wasn't the Judeo-Christian God they were talking about. Just the American people didn't know that. They dedicated themselves to what they dedicated themselves to. And as soon as they did that, then God started sending prophets to the United States to warn them of what was coming. And Dumitru Duduman, look at his testimony. There's a ton of other guys in there. There's like seven different guys in there. They didn't know each other. They're all very famous men, but they all carried the same message, and God gave them visions and dreams and messages of an invasion and an attack force which was organized between Russia and China. Check all this information out, and there's a lot going on right now. There is a huge amount on our plates. But I had to get this out there before the blood moon comes in tonight. God bless you. Keep on looking up. Our Savior is near, and perhaps we'll see each other soon. God bless.